Black Thought is a legendary MC that has done so much in his career. From starting out in the 1990s as the frontman of the legendary Roots group to going to the Grammys, going gold and platinum on multiple albums, receiving so much critical acclaim, working for Jimmy Fallon, and building a discography that is revered as one of the best and most important in hip hop. Thought is a clear GOAT candidate when it comes to who is the best to ever grace the mic. Now, looking at Thought's recent output, in 2022, he gave us the amazing Cheat Codes, which was a collaboration with the one and only Danger Mouse. And this record was praised for its powerful and gritty lyricism, its creative abstract instrumentals, and guest performances from ASAP Rocky, Joey Badass, MF Doom, Run the Jewels, and many other revered MCs. Not even a full year after this juggernaut of a project, Thought has given us a new album titled Glorious Game, which is produced by El Mickels Affair. And I really hope I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I apologize in advance. But in a lot of ways, this record is the spiritual successor to Cheat Codes, and really, it's just a full-blown sequel when you really look at what the project has to offer, and here's why. Now, first off, Black Thought has 3 lines of projects in his discography. So, obviously, you have his work with The Roots. Then you have his solo catalog, which is the Streams of Thought EPs, and then Streams of Thought 3, which is an album, and Streams of Thought 4 is also coming out soon, and that's supposed to feature J.I.D., Mos Def, and a ton of other great MCs. So that project's probably going to be ridiculous. And now we have the newest line of Black Thought projects with his producer collab albums. So I want to just show you guys the symmetry between Cheat Codes and Glorious Games. Now, both records contain, titles that have words with the same letters, and in these phrases, you can see the symmetry between both of them. I mean, one is talking about a cheat code and the other is talking about the game, and we're going to get more into that right now. So, on Cheat Code, Black Thought talks about his past and the impossible odds that he was stacked up against in his life, and he talks about all he had to overcome and all he had to do to reach a point of success and pride and joy in his life. And he says that due to the insurmountable odds that he was against, it's like he played the game of life on cheat codes. You see where I'm going here? So, Glorious Game is the natural progression of these ideas, and as opposed to Cheat Codes, which explores Black Thought's ability to overcome and defeat a system that is so vicious, this record focuses on the entire game of it all. So, it's a really interesting approach because pretty much what this album does is it builds out the narrative and musical world that Cheat Codes sets up, and I think that that's a really interesting payoff and a really interesting dynamic for a project. These projects are very distinct in what they explore, but they both enhance the experience of the other. So that symmetry is just amazing. And I don't really think that anybody knew this going into it. I for sure did not. And my expectations weren't as high for that reason because you just didn't know that these records were that connected. I mean, there was not one thing in the promotional campaign that these records were this connected. And it's clear that this is a direct sequel of Cheat Codes. I mean, Thought immediately establishes these themes on the self-titled track as he paints pictures of our society and all of its problems in its current state. And now there is another piece of symmetry we're going to be talking about. So the self-titled tracks on this album are both the second songs. So they're kind of used where, the intro welcomes us to the specific knit of the album, but then you have the self-titled track, which kind of really welcomes you in to the broad themes that you're going to explore for the rest of the record. And I just think, again, the approach and the symmetry is just so interesting. I mean, how many artists are this intentional in their creation when they're writing the stories for albums? And before I get into, the real meat of this project, I just want to note another thing. Both of these albums are 12 songs too, and they're about the same length. So that really, again, just shows you how genius and how interconnected these records are. But when it comes to Black Thought's performance on this album, he brings his usual combination of fiery, well crafted lyricism and really well thought out and really interconnected subject matter. And it's really some of the most in depth and thoughtful lyricism that you will ever find. He explores the same system that he conquered on Cheat Codes, but looks at everything in this darker and more vulnerable lens. I mean, whether he's focusing on such topics as losing motivation in his own life during his mid 30s, or he's looking at the overall false ideology of something like the American dream, Black Thought's performance gives us some of his most raw material yet. I mean, just look at some of the bars on this album. He says, "Didn't have no competition. My life was long division. Staring at four corners. I might as well have been born in prison." I mean, that's like, first of all, I mean, the writing of that bar, the technical penmanship is amazing, but the meaning of that bar is really, really powerful. And those are some of the strongest bars on this project narratively that really bring everything together. You can really understand what Thought is trying to say by pulling out these really meaty lines that he wraps the rest of the track around. Another bar he says is, "And if you can't see the poetry, you're a poem." And again, this is another bar that masterfully highlights the themes of the record. And Black Thought is just aiming to draw something up that is so interconnected on this project. And it's so infatuating to just watch him connect this world through stories that are both personal and stories that both reflect a worldview on current issues. It's a very powerful record. He talks about the odds that were set against him at birth, very similar to the way he does on Cheat Codes, but he focuses instead on how crippling this system can be to those living in it, as opposed to focusing on his own progression through it. Now, throughout this album, Black Thought really connects all of the storytelling by comparing our world to a digital algorithm of some sort. And I really think that this was a really clever detail and a really clever way for him to really tie everything together, because on top of using this digital analogy to connect the ideas of the glorious game and the cheat codes, it's a really clever writing technique that he uses to show what is going on into our world, but put it into a perspective where we can see things through a fresh lens in a way. And this is just so powerful, the way he's able to tie this all together, the way he's able to paint this picture. And again, building out the world of this project, Thought also gives us a series of personal tracks that navigate us through some heartbreaks and failed relationships that he's had. Honestly, like, it's a little unusual to hear Thought rapping from, such a personal perspective, because the way Black Thought raps, it's almost like he is, the conscious of our society. So for him to really rap us through these personal tales about lovers that he's had, relationships that have broken, it's a really interesting side and something that I do appreciate, despite that these tracks actually make up a lot of the record. But it really does just add more context to both this project, Cheat Codes, and also just Black Thought's story as an MC and as a person. Again, like, this record is just such a good piece that fleshes out albums that Black Thought has already made, and also just fleshes out stories and ideas that Black Thought has already told. Like, I really appreciate Black Thought's performance because it's just so layered and nuanced. And another thing to note is that he's able to really show off these different parts of his skills in multiple ways, whether it's through his technical writing or whether he's switching up his flow a little bit or raising or lowering the tenacity of his vocals. The dynamics that Thought brings just show us how he's still finding new ways to evolve himself artistically, and just to show us how clever and how rounded out of an MC that he truly is. Now, gluing Black Thought's amazing performance on this record together is the soundscape of L. Michaels Affair, who creates a series of really put together jazz instrumentals. The beats on this record are a lot more pure and by the grain than the abstract and muddied up score of Danger Mouse on Cheat Codes, but wow, L. Michaels did his thing behind the boards with these jazz rap loops that, they feel so Quarian esque. And this is kind of nice as it kind of brings you back to, like the Fall Apart era, which, that's going all the way back to 1999. So again, like the symmetry, the intentions that Black Thought had when making this record, it just feels like such a rewarding album in the grand scheme of his catalog. And now you can listen to this album on your first time. It could be your first ever Black Thought album, and you can enjoy it because there's a lot of really interesting content here, and it just sounds really good. But if you listen to pre-existing material, if you're a Roots fan, if you're a Black Thought fan, this record is for you. Like, you are going to eat up everything he does on this project. Now, to show you the highlights on this record, I'm just going to be ranking the track list, which at number 12, we have the Glorious Game Reprise, because, it's not really much of a track. At 11, we got Grateful. At 10, we got Alone. At 9, we got Miracle. At 8, we got the self-titled track, Glorious Game. At 7, we got I Would Never. At 6, we got That Girl. And this top 5 is elite. At 5, we got Alter Ego. At 4, we got I'm Still Somehow. At 3, we got Hollow Way. At 2, we got The Weather. And at 1, we got Protocol. Now, all in all, Glorious Games is a record that really surprised me with how purposeful and powerful it was. It's a really fulfilling and, just absolute surprising delight of a sequel to Cheat Codes, as Thought really builds on the narrative canon of this universe by rapping just about how his environment truly was and about how unforgiving the system he had to overcome is. I think that this record just has so many strong points, and you could really you could teach a course on just the storytelling in this record and Cheat Codes. That's how brilliant Black Thought's past two projects is. So for all this record does narratively, for how good it sounds, I am going to be giving Glorious Games an 8 out of 10, which, it gives Black Thought another really good album in his catalog. So the question is, after this good of an album and after a 30-year run where he's still getting better and after just building up such a powerhouse of a catalog, is Black Thought the best rapper of all time? I don't have the answers right now, but let me know if you do it in the comments below. I know some of you may be mad, some of you maybe thought I would officially declare it, but I don't know. We'll do it later, some other time. I got to think about that because, again, that is just such an intense debate that I have to sit down and, that meme from Always Sunny where Charlie Day has the board and is trying to explain it? Like that's where I'm at with the GOAT debate at this point. So that is a whole topic for another video, but I will say this. This record definitely makes Black Thought's GOAT case a lot stronger, and that's saying a lot. So let me know your thoughts on Glorious Games. Have you given it a listen, and are you planning on listening to it after this video? What do you think about Black Thought's GOAT case? Do you think he's the GOAT? Do you think he's in your top 5? Is he in your top 10? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Mr. Fantastic, Fantastic Hip Hop, signing out.